Sunday afternoon at Doug Kingsmore Stadium was more akin to a sick, sadistic modern-day Charles Dickens novel than it was a baseball game. It was certainly the best of games, and in the end, it was the worst of games for the Clemson Tigers and for the umpiring crew. We're going to break down everything that happened in Game 2 of the Super Regionals between the Clemson Tigers and the Florida Gators, plus all of the extracurriculars that went along with it on this episode of Around the Paul. I'm Garrett Mitchell, along with Griffin Barfield and Clifton Kennedy, and it's glad to be back at you. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been able to record an episode. Griffin's back home in New Jersey, summer break. He's living his best life. Have to say I'm a little bit jealous of that because I have to go work in the hot sun every day. But hey, you gotta make money somehow in this ever more expensive world, right, guys?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, don't get it twisted. I'm still working here, but it's good to be with family. It's good to be back. But I'll be back in Carolina soon enough, and I'm very excited to get back.
Hey, absolutely. Well, guys, I tell you what, we were Clifton and I were at Doug Kingsmore Stadium on Sunday afternoon. Griffin, I'm not sure how much did you get to watch the game in live in real time from back home?
Yeah, so I was working a little bit. I was following it a good bit on my phone, and then I kept it on from the 6th to the end of the game. So I got a good chunk. I got all the ejections. So I kind of got most of what was kind of needed to watch to determine how the game really went for Clemson.
Well, we're going to talk about that. And look, Clifton and I, we've already talked in depth about this. He and I were both at the game. He was sitting inside the press box. I was in the press seating area outside. And so I had an even better, I like to say I even had a better view of what was going on, and really from my vantage point got a great feel for the crowd and just how rabid these Clemson fans were, how much blood they were out for, because believe me, by the time that game got to extra innings, it was a tinderbox that was getting ready to blow. And let's go back to the very beginning, because quite frankly, the fuse was lit. The fuse was lit in the second inning. The game slipped beyond the control of this despicable umpiring crew in the second inning. And if that word sounds harsh, then it's meant to be. It's absolutely meant to be, because that's exactly what they were. From the very beginning, it seemed that they had a set out for Clemson. Nothing that happened was going to change the way that they called that ball game, and it was going to be Florida's going to win or else. Read into that what you will. Read into their motivations. You can make up their motivations in your own mind for all I care. But it started in the second inning with Jack Leggett coming to bat for Florida with one runner on. He hits a 2-run home run. This seemed rather innocuous at the beginning of the ball game, but he spiked his bat after the home run in the direction of his own dugout, which per rules is perfectly legal. Absolutely zero problems with it whatsoever. Guy's a tremendous player. But then we go to the top of the second.
Stop.
2-out double by Jack Crighton. He's at second base with 2 out. And up comes Raaphorst. He hits a little dribbler down the first base line. It's fielded by Leggett, who immediately shivs Raaphorst right in the chest with the tag. Did not need to tag him that hard. I was right there. I'm looking at it. He straight shivved him in the chest. Anybody else can say what they want to say. I saw what I saw. It was what it was. Bench is clear. Here comes everybody. Chaos ensues. And then 18 excruciatingly painful minutes later, after a review that should have only taken 30 seconds, Clemson's Jack Crighton gets thrown out of the daggum ball game. Why does he get thrown out of the ball game? Because out of all of that, an absolute cheap shot taken by Jack Leggett, then he subsequently shoves Raaphorst in the chest. It's Jack Crighton who gets ejected because he ran on contact when the ball was hit. It's 2 outs. The tag was made as he rounded third, and he did what any other normal player in the game of baseball has done for 150 freaking years. He turns and starts jogging back toward his own dugout. And after 18 minutes of utter, profound incompetence. He gets thrown out of the game because of the umpire's judgment. They said he was leaving his position to come join the altercation. So, guys, that begs the question, what position was he actually leaving? The inning was over. At that point, his position is in his damn dugout. So what are these idiots thinking in that moment? I'd like to know if anybody could get inside their mind. I certainly was not able to. But what's your perception of that now that I'm off my soapbox on that issue?
I'll let you go first, Cliff, since you were there in person, and then I'll give you mine because obviously I was watching from a TV. You had the better view than I did.
Yeah. So I mean, what I saw is exactly what he said. I mean, here's my deal. I would have been okay with them throwing Caglione out and no Rocky out and whatever. Like, throw them both out if you're gonna throw them out. The worst thing that happened is, they sat there for 18 minutes and looked at every little bit of that film, and not just, they let somebody else that wasn't in the stadium make the decision. And then Jack Crighton gets thrown out of the middle of nowhere. He touches the ref, okay? But before that, the ref grabs his neck and pulls him back. Like, the umpire initiated the contact, and grabs him by his neck and jerks him back. That's not even the umpire that I thought he touched. Yeah, I mean, that's not – I think he touched the home plate umpire, but the first base umpire, the crew chief, grabs him by his neck when you watch the video, pulls him back, and supposedly he gets ejected. Now, like I said, I would have been okay with both players being thrown out. But you knew from the get-go that they weren't going to throw Caglione out because he's probably the best player on the field, one of the best players on the field. They're not going to throw him out.
For an SEC team, it just means more, right?
Yeah, and that too. And so they're not going to throw him out, and if they're not going to throw him out, they're not going to throw no Rocky out because you can't. If you don't throw one out, you can't throw the other one out. So they had to find an excuse for being there for 18 minutes, for one thing. And so all that happens. They give both benches warnings. Now, this is my take, and from what I've heard, they gave both benches warnings, and so the whole game, the umpires were on high alert, and very hypersensitive to the entire game. Like, every little thing had to be reviewed, had this, had that, whatever. So what they should have done is just not given warnings and just sit. Because it really, to be perfectly honest with you, looking back on it now, in the moment, I was irritated, pissed, like, throw him out, do this, do that, throw both of them out. But the more I look back on it, the more I'm like, it's just a little push and shove. Like, push them apart, get them, like, diffuse the situation, and let's get back to playing baseball. But that didn't happen. So then the rest of the game, they're on they're hypersensitive to every little thing that's happened, and then everything else just went downhill. But not just that, their strike zone was horrendous.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about that here a little bit later on.
Yeah, but that's my take on that, the first confrontation. Yeah, so it was crazy. Like, it was just bad officiating. So that's kind of my take on the whole situation from being there.
Yeah, and Griff, what's your take on it all? Or at least that first kind of a little bit of a series there that just would set everything up for everything that happened in the next 4.5 hours after.
5 hours.
Absolutely. Because like, and when we've sat and talked about poor officiating on this podcast before, it's part of every game. And what sucks is a game that is put out of the hands of the players and put in the hands of the officials. Do I disagree with the official calls? Yes, I agree. I think with what Cliff said with the Naraki Caglione altercation, I thought both of them should have been thrown out. I would have been completely okay with that. And yes, Crighton did touch an umpire, and you can't do that. I get it.
Throw
and
him out too, for all I
be a
care.
scapegoat. I don't exactly, but I think you can't favor one side. If you do something to one side, you have to do it to the other. And I know we're going to come up to this next point, and I'm going to say this point again with the bat spike in extra innings by Mathis. We'll get there in a second, but I think you guys covered all the points. I thought it was a very poor decision, and even so, contact is part of it. College baseball, a lot of trash talk. It's college sports. It's everywhere. But I really thought that in that moment, the officials took control of that in a situation where, I think that I could have just been okay with letting the kids play and not have Crichton thrown out in that situation. Mm-hmm. So you have to go one way or the other. You have to keep everybody in and let the kids play, or you have to throw everybody out in that situation. You can't take one side. And to me, the officials took the side of Crichton, who was trying to defend a teammate, to try to defend a situation that was going on in defense of his team. And that's what happened. And I don't agree with it, but at the end of the day, it is not in my hands. It is not in the hands of a 20-year-old kid watching the game from a few states away. It's in front of the crew that is in charge of the game. So I'm going to, I can give my opinion all I want, but that's not going to change the outcome of the game. But, I think the officiating, I think it should be reviewed. I really think so. But, that's my take on it. Game's over. Florida's on their way to Omaha. So at the end of the day, you can't really change much. But I think that there should have been, if these umpires had the decision to go back and change stuff, I think they would. And I think they should. Because obviously, that's just my take on it. I think you just have to be fair. So
yeah, well, I will say this: umpiring aside, Clemson had their chances to win that ball game. Both games.
100%.
Both games.
Yes, agreed.
And I'm not saying that the umpires are why Clemson lost the ball game, because that it wasn't. They had their chances. They loaded the bases in the first inning, of that first game. Could have got more than 2 runs in that first game. There were multiple chances. Clemson did not play as well as they should. And in the end, pitching hurt us. And we've been saying that all year, I think. So, but the officiating was horrendous.
Yeah, and we're going to talk just a few more minutes about that. But then I do want to get on to some of the really just the tremendously positive things that we saw in the ball game. But I'm not quite off of my soapbox yet, because I do have to get this out of me. But you mentioned the strike zone, Cliff. So, look, let's move on. Let's move on from what happened in the second inning. And let's look at what happened over the next 11. Quite frankly, I have no clue what that strike zone was, because the home plate umpire certainly had no damn clue. Period. Mm-hmm. There were times, and I think I texted you this during the game. I said, if a Clemson pitcher throws a pitch, any pitch, it does not matter where that pitch is located. If it is not swung on by a Florida batter, it is going to be called a ball.
Yeah.
Period. There were pitches that were between knee and belt high, straight down the center line of perimeter frickin' road, that were called balls over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I talked to a friend of mine actually yesterday, and we were discussing this. He said, I was watching it on TV. He said, I know you had a different vantage point from being there. He said, trust me, it was every bit as horrible on TV as it was with you watching it. But he said, if I had to pick one pitcher out of the entire ball game that strike zone and that home plate umpire screwed over the most, it was Billy Barlow.
Yeah.
He said when Barlow was in the ball game, he said it was so horrendously bad. He said it was completely beyond any human ability to explain it away.
I think so. I saw a picture of the ESPN strike zone from a phone, and I think there was like 8 or 9 pitches on there, and I think there were only 2 that were balls. The rest of them were green.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter, and in the broadcast, the center field camera didn't work. It shut down between the 10th and 11th inning.
Yeah,
I mean that again.
They said it overheated. They said it overheated.
Rightfully so. I don't know how hot it was in Clemson. I'm sure it was hotter than what's going on here.
82 degrees. It wasn't that hot.
Yeah,
but you got a better view of these pitches because they were taken from home plate. So you got to see these pitches, and most of them to me looked like strikes. They looked like they were in the zone. I don't know if they were high, they were low, but that the graphic that Cliff was talking about, I think it was on Twitter. I don't know who posted it, so I'm not going to credit the wrong person. Every pitch that I believed was a strike according to the picture, and the umpire called it a ball. And I think that ruined Barlow's momentum because he had 2 outs. He walked 2 batters. You had to bring in Drew Tinsworth and then Ethan Darden to finish out the game, which is starting pitcher at the end. But I think it messed up rhythm. It messes up rhythm. But, I think Cliff makes a great point with what he was saying a few minutes ago is that, Clemson is an elite ball club, at least this year, in my opinion. And they just had the game too close to call to allow the officials to take over the game. Again, we talked about this before, but, I think the best teams would have won or would have taken advantage of their opportunities. Like you said, in that first inning in game 1, they would have scored more runs because they had the bases loaded with no outs, 1 out.
Yeah, I think it was 1
You just have to take advantage of those opportunities because you have no clue if that's going to bite you in the butt at the end of the day. And, looking back on it, that could have been it. But I'm not going to discredit the bad choices that were made on Sunday. So I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, and so we're going to kind of come to I'm going to come to the whole crux of the Bash Fest here. And look, like I said this before we began recording tonight, I grew up on a farm, and one of the earliest lessons in life that I learned is that you reap what you sow. So, yeah, we're going to get it all off our chest. I'm getting it all off my chest right now. But anything I say about these umpires for the next 5 minutes until we move on is 100% earned. They brought it upon themselves, and they're going to hear it from me because I couldn't give it to them in person on Sunday. So if Van Raaphorst or any of the other crew are watching this, just sit there and take what you're getting. Take what you're getting and then move on. We can all move on, but you're going to hear about it. And you're not hearing about it from me. You're hearing about it from about 500,000 other Clemson fans across the United States of America. So deal with it.
Yeah.
Let's get to the 13th inning. We're just going to go ahead and jump right to the end because at this
point.
Hold
up. Don't skip too close to the end unless we're just talking about umpires.
Oh, no. We're finishing up. We're getting all this off our chest.
Let's get the lows out first. Let's get the lows out.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And then we're going to talk about all the great things that happened.
Okay. All right, I got you.
So there's a method to my madness here. Just stay with me for a minute.
Okay.
Let's get ahead to the 13th inning. When at that point, what had been a complete and utter crap show of incompetence devolved into what was quite frankly the most despicable display of baseball masochism I've ever seen in my entire 39 years of existence on this big blue spinning ball. 9-9 ball game, 2 outs, bases empty, and Aiden Mathis, who had worn an 0-for-6 collar, comes to the plate and hits a home run to straightaway right field to give Clemson the lead. And, Griffin, I don't know how loud the TV could make the crowd seem, but take it from me and Cliff, who were there, that place was quite literally moving. It was so loud at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Unbelievable moment.
Yeah. Take it 10 times louder, maybe 100. It was insane.
And so it goes from sheer chaotic, jubilant celebration to a complete and utter incomprehensibly undigestible madhouse in the span of about 30 seconds. Mathis crosses home plate, and before anybody even knows what is even happening, Erik Bakich and Jack Leggett are on the field in the faces of the umpires and having to be physically restrained. Nobody there knew what was going on at the time. I didn't, Cliff didn't. We're all asking each other, what exactly the hell? Yeah, we're like, what the hell is going on here? But
I heard they didn't even show the bat flip. I heard they didn't even show the bat flip on TV.
Right. But then word begins to matriculate back to us exactly what was going on. And we learned that it was all precipitated because the home plate umpire thought about ejecting Aiden Mathis. But then they got together and decided to warn him over the backflip. What set Bakich and Leggett off was the fact that Caglione had done the same thing in the first inning. Had never been warned. And on top of that, and I picked up on this later, guys, those three umpires made it a point, and I have zero doubt in my mind that they did it on purpose. They did it in an insightful way because their egos had gone so far above and beyond what is required of a sports official that they wanted to elicit a response from the Clemson dugout, and they got exactly what they bargained for. They held their conference in foul territory in front of the Clemson dugout, where they would be most visible to Bakich, Leggett, and every Clemson player in uniform. That is the biggest epitome of unprofessional behavior I have ever seen in my life. That is egregious. And guess what? What happened is exactly what was bound to happen because that tinderbox had been building for 5 hours and the fuse finally reached the gunpowder.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it was crazy. Like, first of all, when they started meeting, I was a little confused about why they were meeting because I didn't see the bat flip. And I couldn't believe what was happening. Like when the ball went up, I was like, oh my God, like this is insane. And so it was crazy. It was a madhouse. Everybody's going nuts. There's a siren going off the entire time the umpires are meeting, which I think was amazing. Like
it was. I've got it on video.
That they kept the siren going. Yeah. And but then, I saw Bakich go out there and because he was upset, right? And then I saw Jack out there. And I mean, I'm the hugest Jack Leggett fan. Like, I love him. He knows me personally. I know him personally. I mean, I went to his baseball camps, right? So, when I was younger. And so, I mean, I'm huge. When I saw him out on the field, I had to hold myself physically down because I was like, I wanted to yell, "Get him, Jack!" I just wanted to yell it at the top of my lungs. And because I remember myself at a younger age yelling that when he would go out and argue with the umpires, right? And then come to find out later, both of them get tossed. And the best part about that whole thing was when Erik Bakich threw his hands up in the air and then threw a punch into the air at the crowd. Yeah, into the crowd. And it just, I mean, again, I had to hold myself down because I was like, this is the way I remember Clemson baseball when I was younger.
It was an awesome moment. Awesome.
Yeah,
moment.
It really was. And then you come to find out that both of them get suspended for 2 games and all of this. And it's like, what?
Horse crap.
Like, what? And so, yeah, it was just crazy. What'd you see on TV, Griff?
So with the Malthus home run, I did see somewhat of when the camera zooms out to show where the ball was. I did see a bat getting thrown, which was the only thing that I could see from the umpires to talk about. But again, I was in the same mindset that you two were thinking about, that if, Jack Caglione could have done it in the first inning, why can't Malthus do it in, a sudden death inning to save your season? Like, you sometimes just have to think about the bigger picture that, first of all, these guys are kids. Second of all, MLB players have done it before. I mean, the first that comes to mind is I hate to bring him up, Garrett, but Rhys Hoskins of the Phillies when he spiked the bat. That's what I thought of.
Hey,
I mean, it happens
he
in
had a
the
huge
professional
home run.
world.
He earned it, man.
Yeah, exactly. If you're hitting a go-ahead home run to keep your season alive, you should be able to be excited, throw the bat, as long as you're not doing anything crazy. And if a player has done it earlier on in the game, even, you have to let it just happen. But that shouldn't have been reviewed. It would have taken out Leggett, who was just trying to defend a player. It would have taken out Bakich, who was trying to defend not only his player, but Jack Leggett as well. But I really think that, a positive takeaway that you could take from that whole situation was the passion that Bakich had for his team. And I think he brought Crighton back out to the dugout to get the team going. I might be wrong. I don't know if I might be wrong, but he was pumping up that crowd, and I was just excited to see what would happen next. And I just really disagree with the decision again. There's not much I could really say. Again, just let the kids play. You just have to let the officials kind of just take themselves out of this, as it's time for players to shine, especially you just sometimes just have to think about the implications. And with it being a ride or die inning to save your season in the leadoff position, come on, just let the kids play, in my opinion. And I just really strongly disagreed with the officiating, especially with that call, because the two coaches were just trying to defend a player. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, agree on all counts. And all right, my final statement on this, and we're moving on. End of the day, it was just horrendously officiated. And on top of that, it wasn't just that the calls were bad. I think what we all have a problem with, and what everybody there had a problem with, was that it was more than the calls were bad. It's that the calls were bad because these umpires allowed players, coaches, and fans to impact their decisions and how they adjudicated that ball game, which is umpiring 101. You cannot allow that to happen. Emotions, egos have absolutely no part in a game. These three allowed those to creep in and permeate the way that they called that ball game. And unfortunately, it was Clemson that paid for it dearly. They completely lost control of the game and of themselves. They made it about them and completely took the moment away from both the Clemson Tigers and the Florida Gators, who, by the way, played a heck of a 2-game series. I give them credit. Their record might not have shown it, but there was a lot of talent on that team. And what they were able to do, what Clemson did to make that game as exciting as it was completely overshadowed and dominated by 3 individuals who had absolutely no clue, much less any business, being on a damn baseball field on Sunday afternoon. That's my thoughts. That's my opinion. Whether anybody watching wants to comment and either agree or disagree or call me an idiot or whatever they want to do, that is their prerogative, but it is not going to change my opinion whatsoever. They need to be suspended. If it were up to me, they would be fired, preferably from a cannon into the surface of the sun. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. And so we'll just, at this point, we'll just move on. It's off my chest. I've said it. I've had my pound of flesh. I'm satiated. And now let's talk about the great things that happened on Sunday afternoon. And namely, how about our guy Cam Canarella?
Yeah.
There's not much you can really say. Take it
Willie
away,
who?
Yeah. I mean, first off, okay, the guy, it's 9-9, y'all. 9-9. And I think the 11th inning or 12th inning. I can't remember which inning it was in. I think it was
everything after 5 hours just began to run together.
Yeah. So it's 9-9. We get Wright gets a base hit, and then somebody else gets on. And so there's 2 men on. We call a timeout, an offensive timeout. Cam comes back up, fastball right down. I mean, I'm guessing it was a fastball.
Oh, no, this was the bottom of the ninth. No, we're in the bottom of the ninth inning right now.
Was it the bottom of the ninth? Okay,
yeah,
well,
bottom
nine.
Bottom of the ninth.
Or top, it was top nine.
What?
It was top nine.
Top nine, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, we were the away team.
Exactly right.
And so, fastball right down the middle. I mean, I've got pictures of it. Our photographer is amazing. Like, let's give a shout out to Charles Mays, one of our photographers. He did a great job, and you'll see the photos on the featured image when this podcast comes out. They're amazing. And
go check them out. Phenomenal.
Yeah. And so, it was just, I mean, he hits the living crap out of that ball. I mean, right on the sweet spot of the bat, and that ball is gone right when he hit it, and he knew it. And 3-run shot, that's the loudest I've ever seen. I've ever heard DKS. I mean, it was loud. It was louder than the 13th inning, I think, from where I was. I mean, you were in the crowd, Garrett, pretty much. So you tell me. It was loud.
It was ear-splitting.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, he comes around, I don't even know if he threw the bat or not either, but he was so calmly hit it from the pictures. Yeah, I mean, from the pictures that I saw that Charles took, he just stood there, like you said, and watched it, and then he looked at his dugout, and I mean, he just trotted. And then when he rounded third, I have an excellent picture of he's just like, I mean, I got fired up a little bit there. And, but I mean, we've got pictures to prove it. They're excellent. And that place went ecstatic. And then the bottom of the ninth, okay, bottom of the ninth. Umpires, we walked 3 people or 2 people, whatever. I think Barlow's pitching right now, right? In the bottom of the ninth.
I think it was kind of a pseudo infield hit, 2 walks.
Oh, was it Gordon?
Anyway, the bases ended up loaded with 2 outs.
Yeah, and
I think it was Gordon.
Yeah, and it was Gordon. You're right, because I remember the video, Gordon. Yep. And so, side note. An amazing thing about Gordon in that game, he had 10 strikeouts, by the way.
Yeah.
That's really well.
Career high.
That's
in
crazy.
relief.
Yeah, and in relief. And, I mean, we had to pull our outfield in, and that ball's hit. And it's not just hit. There's no air under that ball. It is a line drive, almost. And I thought it was gone. I thought that ball was gone.
We both did.
And
off the bat, in person, it looked gone.
Yeah. Cam just turned around and started running. And, I mean, he looks to his left and then just out of a sudden turns back to his right, and the ball is, like, right there. He didn't even catch that ball with his glove. He caught it with his wrist. And I mean, how did he know that to just turn to his right and go to his right a little bit? Because if he didn't catch that ball. And that is the best play I've ever seen. Period. By no. I never saw the Willie Mays hit, but from what I hear, there was air underneath that ball. And it's a bigger ballpark, of course. I think it was like 460 yards, something like that. But still, best catch I've ever seen, period. Bar none. Cam Camarella is the best player in college baseball. Definitely, if he has, I'm just saying, he's the best. Okay, let me rephrase that. Best center fielder in college baseball.
I'll go with best overall too if you want to. But no, certainly
he can hit. He's the best center fielder by far. if not the best baseball player in college baseball. And I've never seen anything like that, y'all. I've never seen a guy single-handedly hit a 3-run home run to tie the ball game and then make a catch to save a game-winning catch. And he single-handedly, besides Mathis hitting that home run in the 13th, won that ball game for us. Because our pitching.
Griff, what did it look like on that play on Cantarella's catch? Watching it on TV, when the ball came off the bat, what's your immediate thought watching from that angle and that perspective?
Immediately, I thought it was over line drive off the back wall, or even being a home run. And it looked like a football catch. It looked like, an over-the-shoulder wide receiver catch, back door in the corner of the end zone. And I think the craziest thing to me is, like you said, Cliff, he caught it with his wrist. He was holding it to the point that he was going to hold on to that ball and not let go of it. And what I think is the most impressive thing about it is, we all know baseball is probably it's probably the biggest team sport. You have to rely on other players as well as doing your own job. You can have a one-man show on football, basketball, even soccer even. But I think the fact that, saving a season with a 3-run home run, but not only that, making a catch as incredible as that was, it is probably the biggest accomplishment I've seen to save somebody's season in all I've watched in baseball. There has been nobody that I've seen carry a team on their back to the extent of a 2-inning period that Cam Cantarella did. And, I think he has his claim now. The world knows his name. He should be back in Clemson next year, according to, social media and what he has said, to other people. And he'll speak to Bakich. Him and Bakich are supposed to speak tomorrow, finally, for media availability. But I thought that was one of the best plays that I have seen in not only baseball, but of sports that I was able to watch. Not in person, but watch live and see going on right before my eyes. I think it was incredible achievement.
Yeah, totally.
I watched that. I was just going to say, I watched that. I was just going to say, I watched that play about 10 to 15 times on Twitter that over the last 2 days. And I still can't understand how he made that catch. I just can't. Like, I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to hear him talk about it, because I know he's going to be asked, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And so I just can't wait to hear if he even thought he could catch that ball with the angle and everything that was going.
Right. He had everything working against him on that play. Just the gravity of the moment. Any run ends the ball game. Bases are loaded. There's 2 outs. Line drive off the bat. That was, I'm not even sure what the exit velocity was on that ball, but it was probably well over 100 miles per hour. And there was Major League Baseball actually has some way that they calculate catch probability. And they even integrate that into their broadcast. I would like to know, based on Major League Baseball's mathematical formula, what the catch probability on that baseball was. Because I guarantee you it was less than 1%. Yeah. But
probably
it had to be, man.
But on the whole, guys, it was disappointing the way the game ended. Florida, of course, rallying to score 3 times. They win the ball game. But when you put together the entire picture of the 2024 Clemson baseball team and you look at the sum of all of its parts, 44-16, they spent a portion of the season even ranked number 1 in the country for about 7 to 10 days. This was a team that had great moments, but to me, what's going to define this team, and for what is going to define this team, we saw it on Sunday too, despite the final outcome. It's that this team, they never felt like their backs were against the wall. They always fought to the very final out. Whether they won or they lost, they were going to go down swinging, and more often than not, they found a way to make it happen. Unfortunately, they just couldn't do it in the final 2 games against Florida. But if you picked one word to describe this Clemson baseball team that could describe its entire season, I think resilience would be a great adjective to use.
I think that's the perfect word. This team in so many come from behind victories. I forget the number. I don't want to say the wrong number.
25.
25. It would have been 26 on Sunday if they won. But
Yeah.
I think not only was this team resilient, their young guys stepped up. And, I know we're talking about Cam Canarella, who's a sophomore. He'll be a junior next year. But, a guy that I want to point out, not only, you guys, your Aiden Knox, your Jacob McGoverns, Tristan McClatty came in short notice for Jack Crighton on first base, a freshman, hit an RBI in the 8th.
Big base hit.
Kept that thing going, kept that train moving, and Clemson stayed alive until the 9th, until, all those plays went down. But I don't think there's a better word to describe this team than resilient. And, I think that Erik Bakich is this man for the job. He'll be a Clemson Tiger for years to come. And I'm very excited to see this resilience in years because, in my honest opinion, I think as long as Bakich is in that dugout managing Clemson, I think that this team will never be able to quit in terms of how they've been able to fight in extra innings over, opponents. I'm looking at Florida State. That was a team that was undefeated until they played them, and it's just tough to describe. Beat them 3 times, swept them, came from behind multiple times. So
all 3 times, I think. Oh, except one game, they beat them by 3.
It's a team that I think will be remembered for sure. And the best is yet to come for this team. I do see a trip to Omaha in their future. As long as Bakich is there, I think that they'll have a trip or 2 or several. I really think the sky's the limit for this team. I just really think that give their flowers to Florida. Florida are very good. Jack Caglione is one of the best players in the country. I was really impressed with that reliever. I forget his name.
22.
It was Brandon Neely. He pitched out of his mind.
22.
Pitched 4 innings after a day of relief the day before. I hope
132 pitches. I think it was
Incredible.
132 pitches. Yeah.
They got some incredible
he's
players
very,
on that.
very good. He has a very strange arm angle when he's pitching.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one thing I noticed from him. Like, his arm goes up in the air, and it was just kind of weird to me. But, yeah, excellent pitcher, excellent reliever, did a great job. So, got to give your flowers, I guess, to those guys,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and look, what's the age-old baseball adage? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Look, for much of the season, Florida was not a very good baseball team for much of the season.
Mm-hmm.
They entered the tournament with 32-28 record. You can argue all you want about whether or not they deserve to be there, but they ended this season hot. They got hot at the right time. They carried that momentum through, and they were one of the teams that were picked to be in the top 6, 7 in the country to begin the season. They really underperformed. It was a team that had a lot of talent, or has a lot of talent, just like Clemson. And so I think the records perhaps may have been a bit, deceiving coming into this super regional. But look, either way you slice it, yeah, sure, we're angry about how the game was called. We feel like maybe, or not maybe, but Clemson did get the short end of it. But at the same time, you got to give credit to Florida as well. Absolutely no ill will towards them whatsoever. They played 2 amazing ball games, and they did what they had to do to win a worthy opponent, and certainly hope and wish the best for them in Omaha.
Yeah, and this is a team that I didn't see, according to any analysts, going past the Stillwater Regional. In predictions that I saw between Clemson and Florida, all I saw was Clemson's winning in 2-3 games. And based off how this team started, where they had to come into a tough environment with DKS, where, especially in that first inning, I really thought that the emotions were going to get to them. They fought. When Clemson came back in that 9th inning, in that 8th inning, they fought. They added 2 more runs after that. It's a team that fights, and it's a team that, they went to the College World Series last year for a reason. You bring back many guys. You bring back your manager. Look out. I think they play A&M. A&M, I mean, they played them before already, but this is a team that's getting hot at the right time. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about Clemson, and for this, at least this series, right, and is these past 2 games, the downfall was every time we came back and either took the lead or tied the ball game, we put ourselves in a tough situation in that following half inning.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do that. Whether it was the umps calling bad calls, I mean, you can't walk people. We gave up way too many walks for one thing. Yeah. And so, praise to Florida, they overcame, and good job. My take on this Clemson team, it's probably one of the best Clemson teams I've seen in a really long time. And Bakich will go find him some pitching through the portal. He'll go find him some more bats through the portal. He'll do what Dabo doesn't and use the portal.
Well, Cliff, hey, let me throw this in here because we know Bakich uses the portal, right? Look, after what he did on Sunday, and not just the taking up for his players, but doing it in such a demonstrative way. I'll even go back very quickly to Crighton being ejected. The umpires wanted Bakich to be the one to tell Crighton he was out of the ballgame. Well, that's the whole reason he pointed to the dugout and called Crighton on the field. We found out later he told the home plate umpire, "You're going to tell him he's ejected. You're not going to get me to do it. If you want him ejected, you're going to be the one to tell him." Now, as far as I'm concerned, you talk about the transfer portal. Holy cow. If I'm a player that's in the transfer portal looking for a new home, I'm already banging my fist on Erik Bakich's door saying, I want to come play for you. There is no better way to win the hearts and minds of your players than to make a public and demonstrative display of taking up for them like he did on Sunday. Just another reason why I'm so daggum proud he's our coach.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yep. I firmly agree with that. I've loved both seasons, and he's done an amazing job. He's continuing to get better. We went to a regional last year, went to a super this year. To me, that says we're going to Omaha next year.
Right, we're moving on up.
That's what that says to me, right?
I
mean, that's what it says, right? So,
let's go ahead. Hey, let's go ahead and book our hotel rooms for June 2025.
Yeah, my dog just said we're going to Omaha. So, we're gonna go ahead and book those tickets, and we'll be there next year.
Hey. Sounds like a winner to me. I even know a great steakhouse in downtown Omaha. We could go to dinner. Been there. Absolutely phenomenal. Well, guys, I tell you what. Before we wrap this up, I'd said I had in my mind I was going to I have to throw this story in there, so just bear with me for about 60 seconds here. But I'd be remiss if I didn't throw this in. So I'm on my way home on Sunday. Cliff knows the story already because I talked to him on the phone right after it happened. So I stopped to get some dinner on the way home, right? And I pull in.
And by the way, you're pissed off. Remember that. You're pissed off.
Yes, I was. I walked in and I was still so angry. So angry. So I go sit down at this establishment and I'm sitting at the bar. I'm pretty much all alone by myself. And this elderly couple walks in and sits down next to me. Now, they didn't have on any type of clothing that explicitly said the University of Florida, but this sweet lady, she had on a blouse top that was blue and orange. It was Florida's colors. So I naturally assumed they were Florida fans. So we're sitting there in close proximity for about 10 minutes. I didn't say anything to them. They didn't say anything to me. And all of a sudden, the gentleman, he pipes up and he asked me, he said, "You're from Clemson, I take it. I see your shirt." I said, "I am." He said, "Well, look," he said, "we were at both games." He said, "We've been in Clemson the last 3 days." He said, "I was wondering if you could tell me what happened with all of the ejections and all of the controversy." He said, "We couldn't really get an answer during the game." He said, "You don't know what happened, do you?" So the long and short of it, I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And I I told him what we were told anyway, the official explanations we were given. But we ended up talking a little bit about the game, and then we just started talking about life and traveling. He and his wife are retired. They're avid travelers. And so we found that common ground, and just super, super sweet people. And so it comes time to pay our checks, and we each ask the server for our bills. The server brings them theirs and then turns around, and I thought she was going to get mine. So I pull my card out of my wallet, and she turns around. I go to hand her my card, and she looks at me and says, "I don't have your check." So I kind of cocked my head. What do you mean you don't have my check? She said, "No, this gentleman right here just bought your dinner."
Wow.
So I had this chance encounter with two very awesome and kind Florida fans who had been in Clemson for 3 days. They were on their way back home to Tampa, where they live. And what they told me was in the 3 days, they had never been to Clemson before. But they said they were treated so warmly and so kindly by every Clemson fan that they met while they were in town, and that it was the least that they could do to pay that kindness forward by getting my dinner. So I tell you what, this gentleman's name was Fred. So Fred from Tampa, by way of tiny little Como, Mississippi, just south of Memphis, which is where he told me he was originally from. So anybody watching this from Como, Mississippi, and you know Fred from Como, I tell you what, you've got an awesome representation of your hometown right there, because these were awesome people, and can't thank them enough. So I told Cliff, I talked to him on the phone right after that, and I told him, I said, "God dang, man, I can't even be mad anymore."
It's incredible.
I was like,
That's
I can't even be mad anymore. but no, so disappointing result. But I think you find little rays of light through the gloom and the strangest of places, and so that was mine on Sunday night. I think I don't know, maybe it was the good Lord's way of saying, "Look, I need you to calm down, and here's my way of making it happen." So thank you, Fred, and your lovely wife.
That's usually how it happens.
Como, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, well, guys, I tell you what, hey, fun, action-packed show. Drop this in. Go check out our sponsor, Arden's Burger Grill, of course, at 1280 18 Mile Road Central. You can tell them that Garrett, Griffin, and Cliff sent you. As always, they've supported us right from the very beginning. We love our friends from Arden's Burger Grill. But, hey, this is it. This is the end of Season 1 of Around the Paul. The next time you watch us, it is Season 2, and we're gearing you up for football season. Can you believe it's less than 2.5 months away?
Crazy. Hard to believe.
No, I mean, we talk about it all the time, but, weeks go by quick. I mean, me as a college student, weeks, months fly. So I'm excited. We already got a lot of news. Recruiting is obviously going to pick up, this 2025 cycle. But I'm just excited to see what this team does. We'll obviously hear more, as the summer goes on from camps and all that. But it from what I see, I think you should expect another great season, another great, time to be a Clemson Tiger, not only for football, but for all fall sports and for this whole athletic program. I think everybody's really doing a great job. I think everywhere is pointing in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do too. It's going to be great, man. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Before you know it, we'll be in Mercedes-Benz Stadium watching the Tigers have some grilled bulldog for dinner. I don't know, but I've never had grilled bulldog before. But I hear a little ketchup, maybe some Heinz 57. I hear it slides down the palate twice.
Oh goodness,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
good
hey,
stuff.
Fun time as always. Good, the bad, the ugly. It doesn't matter. We have a great time talking about it here on Around the Paul. Hope everybody enjoys it as well. You got your information and your shock value all rolled into one episode tonight. So, hey, if you got your fill, we appreciate you watching. But we'll see you guys next time, and we'll be talking football. As I said, we're going to turn the page to Season 2 of Around the Paul. But until then, I'm Garrett Mitchell, Griffin Barfield, and Clifton Kennedy. We're going to sign off by saying, as always, go Tigers, because it's always a great day to be a Clemson Tiger.
Yes, sir. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.